Hey, everybody, this is Steve Larvik. I'm here with the big dog himself, Barry Simon, and he's here because fantasy football season is just around the corner. We just had the NFL football draft, Barry, and I understand you want to run down the top 5 things people can do to get ready for this year's fantasy draft.
That is correct. I do have some suggestions for people to hopefully help them have an effective draft and hopefully an effective season. And my first point on the 5 things is I strongly suggest that everyone try to watch the preseason games as they're on. And if you can't watch the games, maybe check the stats in the newspapers. And I think this is important, especially Game 3. That is the most important one in my opinion. And Game 2 is fairly important also. Everybody has 4 preseason games. Game 3 is the most important because that's the one where the teams actually play their starting players for the most amount of time. They usually keep them in for 2, sometimes 3 quarters of that game to help them, gel as a unit. And it helps you because you can see what players are getting what amount of playing time, especially rookies. You can see in running back tandems and situations like that which of the players are getting the most amount of carries or who are playing at the highest level and getting the better stats. My second point is I strongly suggest everybody buys a fantasy magazine, but I also suggest that you only really use that as a guide because all of these experts have different opinions. That's all they are. They're just opinions. And you can see on some lists where certain experts have certain players ranked fairly high, and on other lists they're ranked more middle of the road. I saw one list that had Darren McFadden ranked as high as the 18th player overall. And, he's a rookie who hasn't really done anything yet, but I've also seen him ranked as low as in the high 30s. So, again, I strongly suggest you use it as a guide and that you follow what's going on and watch the preseason games and create your own list. Use your own list because the whole point of fantasy football really is to have fun. And if you can draft players that you like or are on your favorite team, or if you can, through gut instinct, find sleepers out there that you feel could be a big help to your team, then, it's more fun to draft players like that and hopefully watch them grow as the season goes on. The other point, my third point, is to really do a lot of research on the rookies that are playing and to watch the games to see how much playing time the rookies are getting. And I strongly suggest that simply because, in my opinion, there's at least 3 or 4, possibly more rookies that were picked this year who, in my opinion, will be starting for their team. Just real quick rundown, I know that Matt Ryan will most likely be starting at quarterback for Atlanta, and there are also some running backs, and I'll go through them very quickly. Rashard Mendenhall for the Bears, Chris Johnson for the Titans, Felix Jones for the Cowboys, Darren McFadden for the Raiders, and Kevin Smith for Detroit, and lastly, Jonathan Stewart for Carolina. I think all of these running backs will either be starting or will be getting significant playing time sometime during the season. So I think that you should definitely do the research on the rookies and see what kind of playing time they get during the preseason to try to gauge which ones you might want to put on your roster. The fourth point is to keep current on all preseason injuries. That's self-explanatory as to why that's important, simply because you really don't want to draft a player who's injured who could be out for a long period of time. The only thing that I do say is if you do monitor the preseason injuries, is there are players who may get injured during the preseason who will only be out a few games. And if they're highly ranked players, there are fantasy owners out there who will stay away from injured players. They don't draft them. They stay away from them. And there could be players out there that you could take somewhere in the middle of the draft and just stash them on your bench and wait to see what happens. Because these players, if they come back healthy, could help your team toward the end of the season and, more importantly, maybe in the playoffs, in the fantasy playoffs, and help your team, be successful. So, injuries are important to watch and then gauge and then use your judgment as to whether or not these are players that you may want to put on your bench for later use. And the last item is I do suggest that people participate in mock drafts, free mock drafts. They're on many of the sports websites. NFL.com, ESPN.com, CBS Sportsline. Pretty much most sports websites out there will have drafts. Now, some of these drafts will actually lead to actual leagues that you can be in on the websites that are free. And you can play all year long and do a draft and then play with other people on the website and participate in the league and, have fun with that. And it is free, so you're not losing anything by doing it. And it also, when you do that, it also gives you access to other areas of that website that you can use for more information. And also, they also have websites, especially I think ESPN.com and NFL.com, that will do free mock drafts that don't really lead to anything. It's just you with 9 or 10 or 11 other guys. You go in and you do a mock draft, and then once it's over, it's done. It doesn't lead to a league. So you just do the draft to look at trends. That's really what you're doing with the draft, is you want to see who's being taken where and what trends are developing in some of these drafts to help you know where you may need to take certain players that you're targeting. If you have certain players you're targeting and you think they may be available toward the middle of the draft, and if you go in, you can see in most of these drafts where these players are being taken. And if you notice that they seem to be taken closer to the beginning of the draft in the first few rounds, then if they're definitely a player that you want to target, you may need to take them sooner than you had expected, simply because you don't want to lose them, and these are players that you want on your team.
Pretty much like a regular NFL draft, huh?
Pretty much, and those are pretty much my 5 points.
Now, everybody, Barry has put together his personal top 100 players right after watching the draft this year, and we're going to update it regularly. To get a copy of this, we put it on a PDF file, and we can email that to you, but we need to have you go in and tell us that you want it. To do that, go to www.b as in boy, D as in dog, B as in boy, FF, like Big Dog's Blog, fantasyfootball.com, BDBFF.com, and put your first name in there and your email address, and then go to your email and confirm that you want it, and we're going to send you right away Barry's top 100 players for the 2008 draft. And then once you're on the list, Barry, we're going to be doing regular updates throughout the season, right?
That is correct.
And we can look forward to maybe some weekly audio updates. If you want to get on the podcast, you can do that as well. And we don't spam anybody, guys, so you don't have to worry about giving us your email address. It's just for us. Nobody else is going to get it. Barry, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I look forward to keeping everyone up to date, I hope, during the season, and helping them in any way I can to be successful during their league.
Outstanding. I'm starting to get fired up, man. Football's back. I'll talk to you soon.
Me too.